Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers joining you guys on a early rankings Thursday episode of the show. If you tuned in last week, you know that we're devoting a lot of time here on the Thursday episodes to revisiting our rankings. And it's the first time since we've revisited them since summer scouting. We've got full regular season tape in the books for college football. So we're going through position by position and reordering, rewatching, and giving our new takes really for these positions. Today, it is the running back position. That's right, baby. The war for running back value begins right here. 8 first-round running backs this class. No, okay, maybe that's a little too far, Connor. But this is a fun class. I'm excited to talk about this with you, buddy, because it seems like it's another really good running back class.
Me too, man. We obviously carry the flag for all running back value under this umbrella at Pro Football Focus. We proudly do. So this is an important show to us. And all jokes aside, this is a great group. It's a great group in terms of top-end talent. It's a great group in terms of debate in the middle to the end. It is a first responder salute right there. First one of the night, folks. Buckle up. We're here. We're ready to go. Man, it's pretty awesome. And you know what? I have to admit, it's one of those shows that, and I think you feel a little bit of the same. I still almost wish we had more time because there's a lot of guys that I didn't get to watch that there's always going to be guys on our December, January shows that we haven't watched that are going to get drafted. And we're going to get there. We're going to update these after the combine. We'll probably update all the top fives. But, man, there's just so many names to get through. There's so many different names that are going to go in the first 3 to 4 rounds in this draft. And it's a really, really varied skill kind of group that it's going to be awesome to see where our differences lie.
Yeah, running back is always really interesting to see which skill sets each evaluator really puts a premium on because there's so many different kinds with running backs. And look, obviously we make the jokes that we're kind of caping for the running back value. We also admit that there are different shapes and sizes of running backs. And honestly, whether you're a first rounder, whether you're an undrafted free agent, we see it all the time. These guys can really break out, but it's because of those skill sets, because of that mentality. It's because of the vision, the athleticism, all these kinds of things that you can get drafted wherever in the NFL draft and be a good running back. So even though we're not going to necessarily say that there should be 8 running backs that go in the first round, there's a lot of really good ones to like. And I think that means that your team has a chance to get a good ball carrier, whether it's a feature back, whether it's a change of pace back, a speed guy, a power guy, a 2-back system kind of a guy, a third down specialist, whatever it is. We've got a lot of these guys that we're going to be talking about here today. The structure of this show, it's the same as summer scouting. So Connor and I are going to go from 5 to 1. We're going to give you our top 5s as we've seen them. Like you said, we haven't seen everybody in this class. It's early running back ranking. So we want to see a lot of the, as Connor put it, blue chip players, right? These guys that their names are pretty high on the list already. We want to give you our thoughts on those players. And then kind of when we get closer to the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, hopefully we have anywhere from 15 to 20 of these guys ranked and the scouting reports up for these players. So definitely an early ranking, but we wanted to get you guys something here in the month of December as we really got into draft season, just to reevaluate what our thoughts were from summer scouting. So Connor, I will give you the floor, my friend. You can kick us off here with your number 5 running back in the early running back rankings for the 2023 NFL Draft.
Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate that. And I have a funny feeling that 5 is where we'll have some disagreement. And then I have a funny feeling that while 1 through 4 might not be the same order for us, it'll be the same players. So when we so stick around for the end of the show outside the top 5, because there's a lot of just missed the cut names that we'll get through. Don't worry. Number 5 for me is Zach Charbonnet. And I mean, it makes me laugh. I remember one of the notes I wrote down over the summer, and I don't think he was a top 5 back for me over the summer. I can't truly remember.
He was not for me.
I don't think he was for me, but I remember I had some really very, nice things to say about him. Is that the first thing was he looks like a Michigan transfer playing in the Pac-12. He just doesn't look like he belongs on the Pac field.
It is funny. Yeah.
It's very funny. There's just not a lot of running backs, I think, like him that we see in this conference. 6'1", 220. He looks like he can carry 230 overnight. I mean, he really does. He's just huge. He's huge. He's built like that Matt Forte, Arian Foster. He has that kind of build. he runs like an absolute horse. I mean, he's out there to kill you. He really is. And I loved that. I loved watching it. I love the violence that he established from the very first handoff. PFF gave him a run grade of 93.8. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty serious metric. He was graded as one of the best runners in the country. Workhorse runner, finished 2022 with 195 carries for 1,359 rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns, 52 missed tackles, forced 4.2 yards after contact per attempt, 44 explosive runs. He also caught 37 passes for over 300 yards. For 17 first downs. He only had 2 drops on 44 targets. You can live with that. This is coming off a year where he had 23 receptions for 181 yards. So he got better as a receiver. He became more impactful as a receiver while maintaining that workhorse running back style. I mean, he's got a great body type for the position. I think he's very, very smart. You watch him in pass pro, and he's not one of those guys that's just diving at feet all the time. Do I think the awareness can improve a little bit in pass pro and he can be coached up in that area? I do, but with his body type and physicality, I think it's all going to come together in that area where he's a 3-down back. And to me, is he this guy that's going to run a 4-4 and, you know, be this breakaway game-changing threat? He's not, but can he be somebody that wears you out, sets a different tone, runs in between the tackles, runs off tackle, can catch the ball, can pass protect, do everything the right way you ask of him while being highly efficient? That's really what I saw. I just saw tacklers bounce off of him. I saw tacklers start to become worried about his play strength and overthink how they were going to come to balance and break down, and then he'd make them miss. So, Trevor, full transparency, I struggled so much picking a 5th guy. I really did. There was 10 guys I thought that could have been in this 5th spot, but I kept coming back to Charbonnet, what I thought of him over summer, what I watched of the 2022 film, and I just said, this guy's too good. He has to be mentioned in the top 5 for the show for me.
Well, do you want the good news or the bad news?
I'm usually a bad news first kind of guy.
Okay, the bad news is that we might have the same running backs.
No way. I really didn't expect this.
Because the good news is that you and I are good friends and we see prospects similarly. It means we have a good eye for scouting, if I do say so myself. I also have Zach Charbonnet as my 5th running back in this class. 4-star running back coming out of high school from Lake Village, California. So he's a California kid, ended up going to Michigan. You mentioned it. His playing style does look kind of funny in the Pac-12. Look, he started as a true freshman in Michigan on opening day, I will note. Rushed for over 700 yards in his freshman season, but then the following season, he just didn't get the ball. He just never really got the ball in Michigan. After being recruited pretty heavily by UCLA during the high school process, he decided to transfer over to UCLA once he realized that he just was not going to get the ball as much as he wanted to. And it's been a great fit for him at UCLA. I do think that it's sometimes a little misfit sometimes when guys who play for more of a power conference try to transfer over to such a spread out conference like the Pac-12 is. It's just the Pac-12 is just a brand of football that's very much built around spacing and athleticism and really just going to the sideline using every single inch of the field. Whereas I think the Big 12, a lot of times outside of those really athletic Michigan teams, and then I would just say Ohio State as well, is a lot of those Big 12 teams, they're between the tackles, they're between the hash marks. They're just ground and pound physical football. And that felt like what Zach Charbonnet's brand was. But you plop him down into the Pac-12 and you go, okay, hold on a second. This 6'1", 220-pound running back can hang with these guys athletically. And look, there are some deficiencies. Like when you watch Zach Charbonnet, if you watch him right behind, you're watching a guy like a Tank Bigsby or a Jahmyr Gibbs or something, you'll go like, oh, okay, like he doesn't change direction as well. Well, you got to think of the physical profile of him. Of course not. He's got more muscle, more mass to move. So he's just not going to cut on a dime as fast as some of those other guys do. But he's got good relative athleticism. The weight-adjusted athleticism for Zach Charbonnet, I think, is really good. No, he's not going to threaten flat 4.4 in the 40-yard dash, but the speed is plenty adequate for him to really get good momentum going. He takes contact super well. There are a handful of – I watched 4 games of him, and there are a handful of rushes where he is pinballing off of tacklers, just trying to put everything that they can into the tackle. He's staying on his feet. The legs keep churning. Boom, boom. He takes a couple of tackles, and all of a sudden, he's off to the races. And that's how he gets his big breakaway runs, is because the balance is so fantastic with him. You mentioned him being a 3-down back. I'd be curious to hear what you thought about me kind of countering that a little bit. I think he has all 3 down ability, but I wouldn't call him a 3 down back. Like, for as much as I think the weight adjusted athleticism is good enough for him to be a pro, I still see him as just a bigger back in a 2-back system, which is not an insult at all whatsoever. But I was curious, do you see him as more? Do you think this guy is a player who you can give 20, 25 carries to in a game, that he could be your RB1, that you can lean on him a ton? Or did you see him as more of like a 2-back kind of a player?
I saw him as a 2-back kind of player. What I thought right away with him was A.J. Dillon on Green Bay. That's really, and that,
okay, sure. Yes.
That was what came to mind right away. I said, would I look at some of the backfields in the NFL, right? And you really have to think of almost windows, because these feature backs get hurt all the time. It's just not a really great way to live and die.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry on the Titans. The Jets were doing it with Breece Hall. The Broncos wanted to do it with Javonte, but Melvin Gordon was hanging around, and we know what happened to Javonte. But when you think of Charbonnet and just that mold, like just the guy, you're limiting your offense, right? Because you are taking away the home run threat. And I totally agree with you, Trevor. When you think of Charbonnet in that Green Bay backfield mold of the A.J. Dillon role, and you find an Aaron Jones to pair with him, I think it's perfect. Yeah. Because I think Charbonnet is honestly going to go in the 3rd round. I don't think he's going in the top 60 picks. So I'm totally with you. I think 3 down ability is the perfect way to put it. He will be the ideal 1-2 punch for somebody.
I've got a late day 2 target for him. So yeah, somewhere in the 3rd round is also where I kind of pegged him there. I agree with you. I think that that's a really good way to look at him. And kind of the reason why I brought that up, you brought up Javonte Williams. I think the way that we're describing Charbonnet and the things that we like sort of sound like the strengths that Javonte Williams had. But I wouldn't put him on Javonte Williams level. Like, he's not that kind of an athlete, I don't think. He's a power guy, but he's not that kind of a total package like Javonte Williams was. I'll say I like the hands in the receiving game. I think that that's improved actually over the last couple of years from what I watched. So I really like the hands. I was disappointed in pass protection. Maybe I just watched the wrong.
It's awareness.
Watched the wrong games, but I'm like, man, and it's funny because I think Charbonnet has such great attention to detail in so many other parts of his game. Like, I think the catching, I think that his hands have been more reliable. I think he's been more crisp with routes. I think he's been more confident with routes out of the backfield. Certainly when he is running with zone blocking schemes, he's very confident. He understands his aiming points. He knows when he needs to put his foot in the ground and make a decision. There's so many other parts of his games that are very disciplined. And I felt like that just did not exist with pass protection. I'm like, man, this is like a moneymaker for you. Like, this is an area where you could really stand out. You're 6'1", 220 pounds. So that is definitely something that I would like to see him get better at in the NFL, because then I think that really unlocks that 3rd down role for him, where you can have him in the backfield, and whether he's going out to catch a swing pass, getting some short yardage for you, or being in pass protection. Like, those are the 3 things that I think make you a really solid 3rd down back. And he's missing that pass protection one. And you know how NFL coaches are. If you're about to get your quarterback killed, you ain't going to get on the field. Like, it doesn't matter how big of a power back you are, unless it's an obvious running situation. There's no deception there. They're not going to have you sit in there and protect the quarterback if you can't do it. So that's an area of his game that I definitely want to see him get better at. But I was just very impressed by his vision, very impressed by his overall skill set, and not a ton of things that I really watched his game and was like, yeah, this dude needs to get better at that. It really just kind of is the relative athletic ceiling that he has. And we're kind of seeing that a little bit, but that's okay, man. I think that it's still all very pro level right now for him. So increasing his 3rd down ability is, I think, the big area of the takeaway that I would say that he could get better at. But other than that, man, this is a really good prospect and a guy who I think can contribute pretty early on in a rookie contract for you.
I think so too. Senior at UCLA. I know he's not on the Senior Bowl accepted invites roster yet. If I'm assuming he's very worthy, I think he'd be the best back on that roster immediately. If he opts to go, that's somebody that those one-on-one drills could make him a lot of money, because it was really the one thing I wanted to see more of. And I'm just assuming a coaching staff will get the most out of him in pass pro. I think it's adequate. I think the awareness is lacking, and I think it'll all come together under a coaching staff.
You talked about how you had a handful of names that you could have went with at number 5. Like we did for edge rusher, I'm going to ask you, who ended up being closest to Charbonnet? Was there a player that really kind of was like sitting there at number 6 for you?
Well, actually 3.
Okay.
You could even say 4. It was close. I looked at Zach Evans as potentially not. Once again, these guys, Charbonnet fairly won out. It wasn't like pick somebody. Evans, Tank Bigsby, Tyjae Spears.
I didn't watch him yet.
Tulane back. He's fun. I couldn't put him in the top 5, but he's an interesting player.
Okay.
Dwayne McBride at UAB. Kendre Miller from TCU. Those guys were all in there.
Okay.
I know there's going to be a lot of people that are just screaming at me right now, say Sean Tucker. I mean, it was probably a conversation for later in the show. I was a little disappointed this year with Sean Tucker when I went back and watched some film. So
yeah,
I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anybody that was, I mean, it was tough, Trevor. It really was. It's, and then he wasn't in consideration for 5, but I'm wondering, is Deuce Vaughn going to declare?
I love Deuce Vaughn.
I love Deuce Vaughn too.
I watched his tape this morning and I'm like, Deuce, man. Yeah. I wish the very first play that I watched of him this morning was, I wish I could tweet this out, but we can't tweet out College All 22.
Yes. Reminder to everybody.
The very first key play that he has in PFF's database from the Big 12 championship game, the game against TCU. I cannot remember if it was his own run, but it was an off tackle thing where he is coming around the outside tackle, and the offensive lineman is engaged with a defender, and the offensive lineman pushes the defender a little bit just to gain almost just an arm's length of space between him and the defender. And Deuce Vaughn literally ducks under their arms and runs in between them like no running back has ever had the ability to do before.
That's unbelievable.
He is that compact. He is that small. And I just started laughing watching it because I'm like, hell yeah, Deuce.
Never seen it.
Hell yeah, baby. I love Deuce Vaughn. I wish so bad I could put him in my top 5, but unfortunately just the size limitations don't allow it. But I knew we were going to get to him at some point in the podcast. I will say, off the names that you rattle off there, we will not have the same top 4.
Good. I gave one away. One funny one to me was Dwayne McBride on UAB. I'm watching him and Charbonnet very, very closely together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Charbonnet's just kind of a little bit of a better version. Like McBride.
Just a little upgrade.
McBride breaks tackles. He's a bigger back. He runs the hell out of the football. But he caught 2 passes this year, and he's fumbled 9 times in the last 2 seasons. And to be fair, he gets an insane amount of carries. But I remember I wrote down in my summer notes, fumbled 4 times in 2021, has to clean this up. Then I go do my notes for December, and I'm like, he fumbled 5 times this year. It got worse. So he's a good player still, despite that. He's a very talented runner, but Charbonnet was just a better player, more complete player. So number 4 for me, and I think this is where our rankings will start to be a little different. Number 4 for me is somebody we are waiting on to know if he's going to declare, to the point where Adam Schefter was tweeting about it this week. Blake Corum. Blake Corum, a summer favorite of yours, somebody I did not watch before that show, right, which I regret. And unfortunately, Corum had knee surgery basically to end his 2022 season. Once again, we don't know if he's going to declare, which is a massive question in this group, because if he stays, things get a lot interesting in this top 5 because he's that kind of talent. The top 4 running backs that I ranked here, I was really blown away with, and starts with Corum. 5'8", 210, 95.3 rush grade, which is just, I mean, to put that in perspective, he's right there with Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, that's an insanely high grade, man.
Insanely high grade. Right into the notes, he finished 2022 with 247 carries, which is insane. Over almost 1,500 rushing yards. He finished with 1,463, 18 rushing touchdowns, 73 missed tackles forced is out of this world. 3.4 yards after contact per attempt. That's not as high of a metric as you'll hear from some other guys today, but 36 explosive runs. He added 11 catches for 80 yards. I just think he's got incredibly impressive sweet feet. The feet are just, I mean, he's a tap dancer out there. This dude could probably ace, whatever ballerina school is called.
Right.
It's remarkable to watch this man move.
Is it not ballerina school? Is there like a special word for ballerina school?
What is ballerina school called? And how do we get Blake Corum there? I think, ballet school?
Good job, morons.
Oh, my God. Sometimes we are, especially me, really
That was a tough scene. That was a tough scene.
Man, you know what? I'm so proud that I don't even want to. Don't edit it out of the show. Just let it ride.
No, I won't. Lord knows I won't.
So what is ballerina school called? Ballet school for 400, idiot. So sweet feet, lethal with his balance. I mean, there was times where he could either reset. I took a screenshot of him that it'll hit the internet at some point. It's against Indiana. It's an outside run, and he starts to kind of plant, and his whole body starts to go full like Leaning Tower of Pisa in the middle of 4 defenders. There's just 4 defenders around him. And this is at about the 45, their own 45. He got tackled at the 1-yard line on the play. I just don't know the way he can contort his body and really stop and start. I wrote down he's a dream inside zone runner. Like if you want to run a lot of inside zone, his ability to bounce around and get through lanes, get skinny, know when to hit it, know when to slow down. It can stay. He's just such a talented runner, so talented. This is a guy that is already very well coached in pass pro. I saw him stay square.
Yes.
I saw him understand how to use his leverage.
Yes.
Now keep in mind he's 5'8", 210, so leverage is key. He knows how to get inside your pads. This is the difference of, and I know UCLA had a good year. No disrespect. Getting coached at Michigan versus getting coached at UCLA and pass pro. I saw coaching take place here for Blake Corum. It's ironic because obviously Charbonnet transferred from Michigan to UCLA, but still.
I know, yeah.
Now, let's be honest here. The season-ending knee surgery is concerning. It really is. I mean, I don't know what the injury is, and it's not moving him off these rankings, but if it's something that he thinks is going to hurt his draft stock where he goes back to school, we're talking about totally different expectations because, quite frankly, Trevor is a prospect. I don't know if I want another 250 college carries out of Blake Corum. Full answer, I don't. I don't. They'll run this guy into the ground.
Right.
And I think he's a really talented prospect that can really do whatever you ask of him. But most important, he's not going to be this constant breakaway run threat. But in terms of getting 8 to 15 yards, he's as good as it gets in this class. He really is. He's 8 to 15 yards, which is what wins you football games and establishes the run.
Yep.
This guy's as good as it gets, man. I loved him. And I know you've been earlier on him than anybody I know in the draft community.
I had him as, I think, RB3, maybe RB2 going into the season. I can't remember. I also have him at RB4, but I do think
I'm a little surprised by that.
So I think that we see him very similarly, though. This is, and maybe when it's all said and done, I won't end up having him at RB4 because there's so much to love about his game. I just kind of gushed over what I love about Deuce Vaughn. Blake Corum is Deuce Vaughn, but has a little bit more size to him where you can justify, where you can like trust it. Well, I don't want to say that because Deuce Vaughn's awesome and he's gonna be a pro, but like Deuce Vaughn is 5'6", 180 pounds. Blake Corum is 5'8", okay, still not big, 200 pounds. So he's 2 inches taller, 20 pounds heavier. Like that is a significant difference when you're talking about playing the running back position, going from college to the pros. There's just so much to love about Blake Corum's game. He's such a great receiver. He's a crisp route runner. He's so willing in pass protection. His contact balance is awesome. The footwork is phenomenal. Like all that stuff is there. The reason why I've got him at 4 is simply because he's got athletic limitations. I do. He's just the overall size, and really what it comes down to is the stride length. He's just not big enough of a dude to cover a ton of ground. You get some of these other running backs, they're 5'11", 6 feet tall, whatever it is, and they have longer legs. They are explosive and they have longer legs. They cover more ground than Blake Corum does. Corum has some breakaway moments at Michigan. But I watched those breakaway moments and I go, you're getting caught in the NFL. Mm-hmm. You're not hitting this angle in the NFL. Like, it's just those things aren't going to happen. But I'm glad that you ended your topic on Corum the way you did. Home run speed is overrated for running backs. Mm-hmm. Okay, it is. I was telling you guys, I think yesterday, how I kind of have things divided. I have it like an overall film score of 100, but I have 7 categories that are divided there. So I have them weighted differently. Those categories carry more weight to them. You can score more points in certain areas than others. And breakaway speed is not the number one thing for me. It's just not, because the instances in which you even can rush for a 60-yard touchdown are so few and far between compared to the times that it would be advantageous for your team to just always be the guy that picks up 5. Like, if you're always the guy who's picking up anywhere, really, it's anywhere above 4.5 yards. 4.5 yards is a fantastic healthy yards per carry average. If you can get over 4.5 yards per carry in the NFL, like, you are somebody who is worth giving the ball to on the ground. You are consistently getting things moving. You're consistently putting your team in really good down and distance situations, whether it's second down, third down, converting on fourth down, whatever it is. Blake Corum will be that for you. Blake Corum will be a player who averages a very healthy yards per carry average. And I'm saying this out loud. And again, like, maybe it is something where I look at these other guys and, I get some final, honestly, that for a couple of people that are a little bit higher on this list, I'm waiting to get some final measurables as much as I am athletic scores when it comes to the combine. So Corum still could be higher than this. He could still end up as one of my top 3 backs in this class because of everything that he just does so well. I just think that there are still overall top-end athletic limitations with him simply because of his size. But so much of what he does in the game outside of that is exactly what you would want out of a back. This is a pro guy, and I think that he's going to be a fan favorite for sure, no matter what team he goes to.
Yeah, it was funny. Out of the top, let's say top 4, he was the guy I still didn't have a comp for. I feel like the overall, like you said, measurables and testing will play such a part in that. Mm-hmm. But I'm with you. I mean, I'm really with you. Really, really good player that has limitations in a sense of, can he be that superstar? I mean, he's not going to be a first round kind of guy, but he just feels like he'll be a rock solid back for you for a really, really long time if he's healthy. Do you want to start with number 3 in case we are running, completely the same? And I'm just.
Sure. There's one player that you have in your top 3 that I don't have in my top 5.
Oh, that's right. Good.
And vice versa. 3 for me is Jahmyr Gibbs.
Wow. Okay.
So I have Jahmyr Gibbs at number 3, tailback for Alabama. He's had a fantastic year for the Tide. Mm-hmm. I got some of his PFF stats here. I'm just
big summer guy for us.
He was a summer guy that we were very excited about getting to see him in Alabama's offense. So 81.4 overall PFF grade, 83.1 rushing grade for Jahmyr Gibbs, and then a 78.3 receiving grade, which is a pretty good mark. Yeah. Had 850 yards on the season, 451 after contact, 7 touchdowns, 35 missed tackles, but a .26 missed tackles forced average, which is decently high. You want to be somewhere around 3, and he almost got to that mark. 23 explosive plays, 42 receptions, 378 receiving yards, and just 1 drop. He's an extremely talented player who transferred over from Georgia Tech. It always felt like all due respect to Georgia Tech, it always felt like his game was bigger than Georgia Tech, especially where Georgia Tech is right now as a football program. And you put him in an Alabama uniform. Not only was he not overwhelmed, but he stood out. And what stands out a ton is the twitch, the long speed, the overall athleticism. This is where we get into the realm of you got really good athletes, right? I think a couple of the other guys that we talked about, just really good backs, good vision, good strength, good balance, those things where you're handling the little parts well, playing the running back position. Jahmyr Gibbs does do a decent amount of those things, but he also brings that top tier gear, that top tier athleticism to him. So I think the breakaway speed, we saw that so many times this season. This is one of the guys that I was referencing when I was talking about I'm waiting to see measurements. He's listed at 5'11", 200. I don't know if he's 200 pounds. He don't play like he's 200 pounds.
Well, he's got time to get ready to lie at the combine. So
right. But like, I just, when I watch Gibbs, I think he's got good balance, but he still gets like overpowered on tackles, and like understandably his brand of running back, and he's a speed back. Like I have him categorized as a speed back. Strength is often an area where it's a give and take. You have more speed, you have less strength. That's typically what it goes when you're kind of like building these prospects and evaluating these prospects. But if you're like 200, like if you're 5'11", 200, then I probably think that you should be handling strength a little bit better than that. Like he runs like somebody who I feel like is like 195, like sub 200. And I do think that makes a difference. So I'm very curious to see what Jahmyr Gibbs ends up measuring in at, because I feel like his measurements that we see there are going to tell the tale of the tape more than what he is listed at on a bio. But he checks the athleticism box, and that's a big reason why I like Jahmyr Gibbs, is because he takes very small rushing windows and can turn it into an explosive play. 10 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards down the field. And he was doing that in the SEC. And the SEC is a very athletic conference overall, and he was still able to stand out. So this is where we start to get into the better athletes in the class.
Yeah.
And I've got Jahmyr Gibbs at 3 because of it.
So full disclosure, he was number 2 for me.
I figured he was going to be 2 for you.
Yeah, number 2 for me. I'll go through him quickly now, and then I'll go back to number 3, because I think it's easier, probably better listening experience when you hear us go back to back on a running back, especially when they're this close. 2 and 3 for me, man, you could have flipped a coin, to be honest with you. So
I know who you have it too, and I
3. I have a 3.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know who you have at 3, and this is going to be a discussion between us. This was a summer scouting discussion, and we're doing round 2.
I loved him over the summer.
We're doing round 2 again.
I wouldn't say cooled. I just ended up higher on Gibbs. Obviously, he's number 2.
Phenomenal year.
Gibbs is just, I mean, he really is Dalvin Cook to me. He really is. You watch him.
See, I thought Dalvin plays with more strength.
Well, Gibbs will get there, man. I mean, he's a youngster. I think he'll get bigger and stronger. I think he already did. I saw it start to really take place from Georgia Tech to Alabama. And it's funny because you could just say, well, then he's James. James Cook is 10 pounds lighter than Dalvin.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Because Dalvin was 5'10", 210. So yeah,
I think James is like a hair under 5'11", and he's 195 or 199.
Yeah, something like that.
So
let me look. Let me see what he measured in at. That's funny.
So which Cook brother is he?
He was
he's somewhere in between them.
At the combine, James Cook was 5'11", 199.
There you go. Just lighter version.
And I think as a runner, I think he's closer to James Cook. But anyways, you go on. Tell me about Jahmyr Gibbs.
Man, he's gifted. He just has the kind of feel that you turn it on and you're like, it's too easy for this dude when it's there. There are some guys that they have the rush lanes and they might overthink it sometimes. He's just so comfortable in the rush lanes. He's got that feel. He's got great agility. I like his burst to get to where he needs to go. Once again, that the feet, Corum, it's different because Corum's a little thicker and more compact. Gibbs has those lightning feet with a little bit more of a upright, more lanky kind of build, like you highlighted, Trevor. And you brought up, it's like he didn't belong at Georgia Tech. He was their 5th highest ranked recruit of all time in Georgia Tech history. So, at a time where Georgia Tech, it hasn't. This guy was destined for a bigger program, and he took that opportunity and ran with it. Literally, 136 carries, 850 yards. But what he does as a receiver is why he'll go in the top 40. He's a really good runner. But his ability as a pass catcher is, they could do more with him. When you get this guy going on wheel routes, when you flex him out to the slot, even if you just want to throw the ball to him in the flats. He only dropped 1 pass this year, and he was used as a receiver a lot. 42 catches, almost 400 yards. He's such a good player. He's such a well-rounded player in terms of, the way I was taught to scout running backs was that they have to check the boxes on the higher end, 2 out of 3 things. And you have to be a really good runner, a really good pass catcher, and or a really good pass protector. And that's how you'll get on the field as a rookie. And with him, because of that build, I don't know how much he'll be trusted in pass pro right away. That's a combo that they'll take into the summer. But I know this dude can run the ball and catch the ball as good as anyone, pretty much, besides one dude. And we'll get to that dude. So Gibbs, for me, if you're one of the many teams in the NFL that's leaning on outside zone, they're going to love this dude. Mm-hmm. The demand is in his favor. And I was really impressed. But I do want to get to number 3 because you went pretty. What was that? Go ahead.
Hold on. I was just going to say, you bringing up Dalvin Cook and then you bringing up James Cook. I mean, that's not a bad comparison in certain ways. Like, I think stylistically, these guys are very similar where they are speed backs that bring a ton in the receiving game. Jahmyr Gibbs just had better production than James Cook did in both situations. He had more production as a receiver. He had more production as a back. And I think that Gibbs is more of a running back that gives you receiver ability, whereas James Cook, it felt like, was used like just as a receiving back at Georgia because they had like the Kenny other power guys. So so Gibbs is more experienced as a rusher than James Cook was. But you look at where James Cook was drafted, 63 overall, 2nd round. So I mean, like,
people forget.
I don't know if Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a first rounder. Some people talk about him as sneaking into the first round as like a second running back that could go in the first round. I think he's more of a second rounder anyways. And I think, again,
so is Dalvin.
A little bit of better production. Little bit more of a true running back ability to him. And I think he's going to go a little bit higher than James Cook did. But like body-wise, athleticism-wise, it seems like it's a pretty decent comp there.
Yeah, just style-wise. And it was funny to me. He gets a lot of Alvin Kamara comps, and I'm not really with that one as much.
Everyone does.
Everyone does.
I won't do it. I won't do it.
My take is it's because of his aesthetic.
Right. Like, Number one, dreads. Like, he's got the tape.
The turf tape.
It's the
turf tape. He looks like,
won't do it.
If you took college Alvin Kamara's literal body and put him in an Alabama uniform. But that doesn't mean he's Alvin Kamara. It's different. I came away with more somewhere in the middle of the Cook brothers.
Yeah. I mean, Alvin Kamara takes contact better than basically like
that's
any
a very
running back
point.
in the NFL, right? And Alvin Kamara is 215, so he takes the contact unbelievably well. Anyways.
So number 3 for me.
Yeah, who you got?
I think it's Devon Achane.
Yeah, I know.
89.3 rush grade. This year he finished with almost 200 carries, 196. It's a lot for a dude that the question with him is going to be size. He's listed 5'9", 185. He ran for over 1,100 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, 51 missed tackles, forced 3.6 yards after contact per run, 35 explosive runs, 36 catches for almost 200 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, did have 3 drops in 2022.
Undraftable.
Can't happen. I mean, this is an easy one. The dude's hella fast, man. The dude he was a track superstar in high school. Mm-hmm. He's been on the A&M indoor and outdoor teams, and the track speed is on the field as a football player. If you give him room, he's gone. He's gone. And in today's NFL, this kind of guy, 12 years ago, probably goes in the 4th round. Everybody go, he's fast, but a small breeze will knock him over. Or he won't stay healthy, or we can't rely on him in the run game. In today's NFL, a little different story. Everybody's looking for a dude that, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but Trevor, do you think he has a shot to run sub 4.3?
Sub 4.3 is fast, but he did run.
But dudes do it now. Like it's not as.
He did run the 100-meter dash in 10.14.
That's what I'm saying. This dude is a rocket.
Stupid. And he's also, I think what goes into running a really fast time at the combine is you've got to be comfortable getting into a track stance, and he's clearly going to be comfortable getting into a track stance. So I don't think it's impossible for him to hit sub 4.3.
Okay. I just want to know if you thought it was a conversation, and you do. So
I think it's a conversation.
I'm kind of bracing everybody. This is my number 3 running back. I think he has a gigantic spectrum of ceiling and floor. And I don't feel that way about Corum. I don't feel that way about Charbonnet. I don't feel that way about Gibbs. I don't feel that way about number 1. Hell, there's a couple guys from 6 to 10 that I don't feel that way about. I think there's a giant spectrum from that floor all the way to the ceiling with him. I don't think he's the most natural receiving back, which is going to matter a lot for his success, but he's solid. And you're not leaving him back there to pass. He just went to cut people every time, and guys kind of catch on to that and can jump out of the way. He's not going to stand in there and go square with you, toe to toe. And so what this all leads to is he needs to go to the right place. But if you put him in a system,
to Miami,
Kansas City,
Kansas City too, that would work out.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he'd be terrifying. He'd be terrifying because you can't account for somebody with these kind of wheels. So I did like him a lot. I love his home run ability. I recognize that he won't be for everybody because you better understand what you're doing with his role. But this guy just has something that not a lot of players that come into the NFL draft have.
Yeah, he's got speed. And, when I entered into my top 3 running backs in this class, I said, okay, now we get to the athletes. Devon Achane is not one of my top 5 backs. I have him at number 7. I actually like him better than I did going into summer scouting. I was pretty low on him in summer scouting. I genuinely thought that he was just speed. And I think I thought that he's been better this year. I thought there are instances when his vision can show a little bit better. He was a little bit more decisive in his cuts and how he was reading the field, reading the offensive line. But I have to say this is a massive disclaimer. Texas A&M might have the worst offensive line in the country. I mean, the games I watched, it was embarrassing watching these O-linemen get ragdolled by these defensive players who just immediately went in the rush lane. And there are so many plays that Achane just had absolutely no chance to get anything. And I wonder what his tape would have looked like. Now, they gave him the ball a lot, right? So he has the raw stats. Like, he has a lot of those things. But I wonder what he's like and how much more I like his vision if he was in a situation where he could actually show it all the time. Because I'm not going to lie to you, man. Vision is the heaviest weighted trait that I have for a running back.
It matters so much.
And I don't have the highest grade on Achane. That's not to say there weren't impressive plays of vision that he displayed, but the play-to-play basis, I just was there are times when I watch him and I was like, okay, didn't exactly choose the right thing to do there. Put his head down before he needed to there. Could have stuck his foot in the ground here. Could have had a little bit more patience here. But I kept coming back to, if he doesn't believe in his offensive line, how does he even trust it to even make the right call? And furthermore, how does he trust it enough to get better, to improve that? And I actually think that he improved more in that area this year than what I saw from him during the summer. So I did like him a little bit better, but I'm just worried. I'm still worried. That is still an unanswered question that I don't care how fast you run at the combine. I already know you're fast. I don't care what the measurables are. I think the measurables are going to be solid for him. I know because he's got soft hands and he could be a good receiver. I know all of those things. The thing that I'm not going to have answered is, at least I believe, I watched 4 games of him, so there's other games that I can watch, is I don't know how convinced I'm going to be that he's got the vision that I really want to bet on. And that, to me, Connor, is the difference between him being a back end of day 2 player, like a late day 3 player to me, or a beginning of day 2 player, because you look at his speed and you go, they can't teach that. We got to draft that 100%. If you believe in his vision as a player, if you believe that Texas A&M's offensive line absolutely let him down, I could see a team taking him in the top 50. But if you've got concerns over his vision, like I kind of do, at least at this point in the process, is the speed enough for me to take him over these other backs? No. I just don't think that it is. Not at this point in time. So I didn't have him in my top 5. I had him at number 7, and those are the reasons why.
It's totally fair. I mean, he's one of those guys that it's just, you're going to be praying he goes to the right place. You really are, because I agree that early on, you're going to have to keep things a little simple for him where his pathway is decided, right? A jet sweep. You're going to get the jet sweep, and there's going to be a point outside, obviously before the numbers, where you got to cut upfield. And that's that. You're going to get screens. You're going to get draws. But there's just going to be a play. If you expect to turn around and hand the ball to him the way you would with Corum or Gibbs, and they have to create a little bit on their own, he hasn't consistently, and you're right, the offensive line's been a problem as well, but he hasn't consistently shown that, that's what he is at this moment. So really talented guy, and has a trait that's just a calling card that will be valued highly in this draft. But there's risk. 64
overall in the second round. Devon Achane, you are a Philadelphia Eagle.
I mean, but good Lord. And Miles Sanders is a free agent too, right?
Would be fun. Would be fun. All right, so I guess that brings me to my number 2 overall back that I have in this class, a player that, Connor, I didn't like coming out of summer scouting.
Oh, I know where you're going.
That I had a lot of concerns over, that I just was not impressed with, despite some of the stats that he was able to put up. I just didn't love what I saw on film. I really enjoyed what I saw on film from Auburn running back Tank Bigsby this year. I've got him as my number 2 overall running back in the early running back rankings. 6 feet, 210 pounds, really good size as a back. Some PFF stats for you. 83.5 overall grade this season, an elite 90.5 rushing grade. Didn't have a very good receiving grade. It was just a 54.9, but I think that his receiving film shows a little bit better than those numbers. 976 yards this season, 740 came after contact. That is a high percentage of yards coming after contact there. 10 touchdowns, 60 missed tackles forced, which, remember, I said you're trying to shoot for more than 0.3. That's 0.34, so that's good there. 27 explosive plays. He had 30 receptions for just 180 yards, and he had 3 drops on the season as well. Connor, I feel like, first and foremost, Tank Bigsby could have transferred from Auburn, I think multiple times. If he wanted to transfer last offseason, I believe he could have. And I guess it wouldn't have transferred after this, but you look at the Brian Harsin debacle that was Auburn this season, and when Brian Harsin got fired, it felt like Tank Bigsby could have been one of those guys who just mailed it in, and he absolutely didn't. I think that he looked at his team and he said, okay, now I got to step up even more and be a leader. Seems like the locker room really loves him. The coaching staff really loves him. Cadillac really loves him. The old running back coach who was the interim head coach, of course, Cadillac Williams of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's so much to like about Tank Bigsby's game. He's got the size, and with it, now he's got the balance and he's got the strength. If you remember, Connor, my number one thing that I did not like about Tank Bigsby's tape during the summer is I felt like at times he was a baby deer. Like he just would just get his feet tangled. He just didn't have good balance. I didn't know why. Sometimes it would be right before the line of scrimmage. Sometimes it would be just like him taking a little hit by somebody and it totally knocking him down. I'm like, man, he's 6 feet tall, 210 pounds. And I can't even count on the strength. I can't count on the balance. This year, it looks totally different. He's much more balanced. He's much more in control. I don't know if it's he's a little bit lower of a rusher, if he's not going as upright, if he's handling things differently. I don't even know if it's something that he worked on, but whatever he's been doing this year, I feel like it's been night and day in the balance of contact aspect from what we saw last season. I think this guy is fantastic as a one-cut back, really understands how to see zone blocking schemes really well, whether it's inside zone or outside zone. He understands the aiming points. He understands the feel for cutback lanes, and because of it, he is a yards after contact monster, as those stats alluded to. I think he's got really nice long speed as well, especially for a player who is 6 foot 210 and has that size to him. I feel like he is such a great all-around back. I think the pass blocking is there for him too. I think he's a willing pass blocker. He get a little bit better in that area, of course, but I think that size presents itself as a really good mold for him to be good in that area, along with some nice hands that I like from him to be a third down back. I just feel like he's such an all-around player. Does he have the elite speed that Devon Achane has? No, he doesn't. But so much of the rest of his game is well-rounded at a high level. I feel like sometimes we use the phrase well-rounded and we mean it as a negative, right? It's when a guy can't stand out. And I do think that having a trump card going into the NFL is important. I don't think that Tank Bigsby necessarily has a trump card, but that's because I think the floor of his game is so high. But I believe that the ceiling is too. I don't mean it to mean a backhanded compliment. So much of what he was able to do, I enjoyed watching from this past season. Got 3 games on him in the books and really liked what I saw from those 3 games. Definitely going to continue to watch him because right now, from what I saw, he was my second favorite back in this class.
Man, I'm surprised. Honestly, I really am. Let me say this. You were like, you got to watch him. And I did. And I saw much improvement because last summer when we talked about him, I was like, man, I'm disappointed. There's no way around it. I was disappointed. I didn't think he was a big creator. He had the 4 fumbles in 2021. I thought he always plays with a lot of fire and heart. That's what I had written down. And I saw that carry over in 2022. And I love his leg drive. I think that's really very, very consistent in his game. Now, and he's got size. I mean, this is a dude that's not a fake 6 foot 210 or whatever it is. He's got the size already that you feel good.
He's not 6'5", 240, but
he's not 6'5", 240. When he leaves the voicemail, he's going to be like, all right, hey guys, Tank Bigsby, 6 foot 210. But listen, he created a ton of missed tackles this year. I saw lighter feet. The contact balance is really, really good. I think the ceiling for him, to me, wasn't that high. I think he's not much of a threat as a receiving back. I thought that there's a lot of times where he overthought where to go, whether to hit his foot in the ground inside and he bounced outside. I thought he still got bounce happy this year. Improved from 2021. Mm-hmm. I still saw him getting bounce happy.
All right.
So
that's fair.
I like Tank. He was in consideration at number 5. He's going to be right in that 6 to 7 area if I was stacking a top 10 today. I think it's really, really important. The drastic improvement I thought he showed from 2021 to 2022. I just personally don't believe he'll ever be a star. And I did come away watching Gibbs and number 1 and thought that.
Man, I think that I think all 3 of those guys that I've gotten in the top 3 have that star potential.
This class.
I like Tank a lot.
This class is good. So that leads us to number 1.
All right, number 1, obviously Sean Tucker.
Number 1
of Syracuse. No, that's disrespectful. I love Sean Tucker, but obviously he's not number 1 here. Number 1 on both of our lists is it's the one and only. He's going to be RB1 on literally everyone's running back list.
Pretty close to consensus.
There's not.
I mean, there'll be some people out there that just love
Bijan is going to be as close to a 100%er that you are going to find, I think, at a skill position. Am I right to say that? He's about for a consensus number 1 at a position ranking. Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, junior this year. I mean, what's not to love about him? He brings the size, 6 feet tall, 220 pounds. He's just an absolute monster in that regard. 5-star running back from Tucson, Arizona. His career at Texas has been phenomenal. And you look at the PFF grades from this past year. Overall grade, elite 95.2. Rushing grade, elite 96.0. Receiving grade, 73.9, which is also high. I mean, that's Jahmyr Gibbs level. 1,583 rushing yards, 1,077 yards after contact. Animal. 18 touchdowns, 105 missed tackles forced. I told you that anything around 0.3 was a good average to have. This man's got 0.40. 41 explosive plays, 19 receptions, 314 receiving yards. 0 drops in the receiving game. Connor, I'll let you take the floor. What did you think about Bijan Robinson?
He's incredible. Everything that he does is just, number 1, this man has a deal with Lamborghini, right? And I think it's just perfect. He has an NIL deal with the Lamborghini in Austin. Wow. And it's just perfect.
Damn.
I mean, and we've talked about his special background before on the show. I think we did a really big Bijan intro over summer.
Mm-hmm.
I think you said it, Trevor, 95.9 rush grade is just truly out of this world kind of stuff. But his background, I mean, he was the first player in Arizona high school football history to twice win the Ed Doherty Award, which is the state's best player. I mean, he won it twice. He was the first guy to do that. There's nothing about his game.
Rushed for 2,000 yards in 3 consecutive seasons in high school. 3 consecutive seasons.
Like, how many miles has he run on the field?
Wow, that's a great question.
You know what, though? Like, besides all the stuff that stands out on the highlight reel, the fact that he will make you look foolish. I mean, truly, truly foolish. Like Boobie Miles at the beginning of Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it looks like watching Bijan Robinson. He also does the little things so well. I just look at him and go, he has tempo in his routes. He's a good receiver. He can play wide receiver from the slot or wide receiver from the backfield. I thought he did a good job picking up blitzers at every gap because he's got such good feet awareness and play strength that he, on top of that, he has the brain to understand where the rush is coming from to help out his quarterback. The thing I wrote down, though, that just matters so much, he has special acceleration. Special. It's like some guys, when you watch them get the ball, you just know that they are different in terms of 0 to 60. With Bijan, it's 0 to 120. And I'm not saying Bijan's like a 4.2, 4.3 kind of guy, but football play speed, his ability to get upfield is different. It's very, very different. You can use this player. The way I constantly think of him is that season that Gurley had. I think it was early McVay, and I'm looking up Pro Football Reference right now. Yep.
Gurley had didn't he have like 20-something touchdowns one
2017 year? Gurley. He ran for 13 touchdowns and caught 6.
Oh, so he had 19. Okay.
He had 19, but he ran for over 1,300 yards, and he almost had 800 receiving yards. That season, the way Gurley was used, to me, is Bijan Robinson for the next.
Yeah, sure.
Like, that's all I could think of when I was watching him. Was that, and that was 23-year-old Gurley. That was him just in a place of, I want to say McVay had been there for, a couple of years already. McVay had been there. Oh, that was McVay's first year as a head coach. He came in with that plan for Gurley, and Gurley was impossible for anyone to deal with, whether it was in the slot, whether it was out of the backfield. Bijan Robinson can do all of those things, and he's healthy. And he will be. So his birthday is January 30th from 2002. From 2002. So this is going to be what?
So he'll be 21.
21 on draft night. Freshly 21 from the winter. We can keep going for days. Scheme proof.
Scheme proof, 100%.
He could play what? Honestly, he could play wide receiver today. Like if you were a team, right? Say you were. I'm trying to think of one that it kind of makes sense for. We'll say the Packers. Say the Packers, all of their wide receivers were hurt one week. And they don't have they have one of AJ Dillon or Aaron Jones with Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson can go play wide receiver for 60% of the snaps.
Sure.
Easily. Easily.
Bijan, rare footwork. Rare. The way that he could, you talked about his acceleration, the way in which he can truly stop and start is that's the rare part. We go back to Blake Corum, right? Blake Corum was number 4 in this class for both of us, and we both love Blake Corum's feet. He's a guy who will make guys miss consistently. He could change direction, and he's a player who will turn basically anything into a 4 or 5 yard gain for you, and you absolutely love that about him. Bijan Robinson somehow takes that to a higher level. And when you watch Blake Corum, you think like, all right, this guy's going to have maybe the best footwork in the class. And then Bijan just very clearly, far and away, you go, holy cow. The missed tackles forced is not, it's not an error. It's just not every single time he gets the ball, he is making somebody miss. Every single time. He's making somebody miss, whether it's up the A gap, whether it's, an outside zone play, whether he's bouncing outside, whether it's a guy who's completely in space, whether he's making a guy miss who's in the backfield, who might get one up on the offensive line. It doesn't matter. He's making people miss no matter what. And that's because of rare footwork processing, vision, and acceleration. He has a rare combination of all of those things, and that makes an elite backfield player. I mean, you don't want to necessarily say this very often, but we are talking about a multi all-pro player if he stays healthy, man. I don't.
Yep.
I don't like sitting here. Like, I'm one of those people who hates using the word generational. I hate anytime people go like, oh, you draft this guy and you got him for the next 10 years. It just never happens in the league. Almost
no, things
ever.
Go wrong really quick.
Like, I just think that those long-term tags that people try to put on, especially prospects, guys who have never played it down in the NFL before, I think it's silly. But it's extremely hard to watch Bijan Robinson and think health is the only thing standing in the way of this guy being one of the best players in the league very, very soon. Very soon. The Gurley year is spot on, man. He is one of those players that can threaten what Christian McCaffrey did in that 1 year, the 1,000 and 1,000. Yep. Now, I think that the Gurley role is probably more realistic, right? A 1,200 to 1,300 rushing yard a year and an 800, 800 receiving yard a year. But like, he can absolutely be somebody who you could almost pencil in 15, 18 touchdowns a year. It's crazy. It's crazy for me to say that. I feel like I'm on crazy pills thinking that a guy could be able to step in right away and play that high of a level at the NFL. But it's hard to get more of a sure thing than Bijan Robinson because of everything he brings to the table. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on him as well.
He will be the way he'll be coveted in Dynasty. Number one overall picks.
Yeah, there's never been other than maybe Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
I don't know how.
Yeah, Saquon went 2.
I don't know how many slam dunk 1-1s there have been that would be better than Bijan Robinson for a dynasty league.
Man, he's pretty special player. Well, let me close out the Bijan combo with this.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you like to see him go?
Oh.
And I feel like we almost can't. Oh, well, their picks forfeited. The cliche for the longest time was Miami, but Miami doesn't even have a first rounder anymore.
Yeah, they also, yeah.
And try to be realistic. Let's say, I really think he's going in the top 20 in this draft. I really do.
He's going higher than that.
Yeah, I was giving you a cushion to make this fun.
Yeah. Let's see. Where could he go?
I already know.
The Eagles at 9 would be sick, but the Eagles aren't going to take. They're not going to take a running back. They're not going to take a running back at number 9. That's not how Howie Roseman does things. That's not how Howie Roseman does things. They're going to take a trench player. They're going to take an offensive lineman, or they're going to take a defensive lineman. That's how Howie Roseman operates. That's what they're going to do. God, man, New England's sitting there at 16.
He's going to Arizona, isn't he?
If Arizona, there's no way Arizona takes him at 5, Connor.
Come on, entertain me. You say no way, like they've done such brilliant things over the years. If anybody's going to do it,
it's Arizona. If anybody's going to do it, it's Arizona.
Entertain this. No, not smart. Fun, but not smart.
Atlanta.
No. No. God, we know Arthur Smith collects running backs and uses them. What if Chicago trades back? Say Chicago wins one more game and then trades back.
Remember
we had a voicemail that said Braxton Jones has been good.
No, I know, but you can't.
I agree. I'm just trying to think. Man. Yeah. I know. It's pretty difficult.
If Vegas doesn't re-sign Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I thought of that one too.
It's kind of hard to believe that they wouldn't at least franchise tag him. Look, Carolina would love Bijan Robinson, but
could you imagine the discourse?
There has to be a lot of quarterbacks off the board at that point. But like Bijan would, it's funny. You would trade Christian McCaffrey just to draft Christian McCaffrey.
That's what I'm saying. The discourse would be. It's insane.
Yeah. I don't think he could do it. I don't know where he's going. You put me on the spot.
The one that it goes back to our voicemail show, and he won't make it here. I mean, Baltimore.
19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I agree.
Hey, if you guys are rebuilding,
right? Like it's at that point,
just take the best player at 19.
Bijan. They didn't take Dalvin Cook when they could have. It's haunted them ever since.
It's a hard exercise to actually find the right place that you think he'll go. As great as he is, because there's so much running back talent in the NFL.
Yeah. Tampa,
we know how this goes.
Tampa's a legitimate target at 19.
Tampa is. I still think Baltimore is. You know what's going to happen?
What's going to happen? You tell me what's going to happen.
Let me check.
Finish that sentence. I want to hear it.
I think I know what's going to happen. You nailed the team. All right, so Jerick McKinnon is a free agent after this year. The Chiefs are moving up and getting Bijan Robinson. You heard it here first. And he's going to split time. He's going to play 70% of his snaps at running back and 30% at wide receiver. I just want you all to know this is where you heard it. And when it happens, you can replay this clip until the end of time.
You can blame Connor for your team.
And you can blame me for the Chiefs terrorizing the league.
Unbelievable. Connor, let me ask you a question before we get out of here. What if you could invest in Bijan Robinson stock as a rookie?
This guy is unreal.
Your investment
he had me. He
would be worth
up
furious. To 4,000%. Now, Connor, it's not just a what if. Now it's a who's next. And Bijan Robinson could be one of those guys who is next. Mojo, the all-new sports stock market, lets you invest in your favorite athletes and cash in on your passion. Sign up right now on the Apple Store to get your first stock for free, which could be worth up to tens of thousands of dollars if you hit it big. Over 300 NFL players are listed on Mojo. Not Bijan Robinson quite yet, but you can invest in rookies like Kenneth Walker, like Chris Olave, guys like that, comeback candidates like Saquon Barkley, Geno Smith, superstars like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Those guys go long and make your money win an underrated diamond in the rough breaks out, or you can even short sell an overrated rival from a rival team if you want to do that as that player flops, if you believe they're going to flop. Prices move with every play, every game, every headline, so you can buy and sell instantly anytime all year long, so the action never stops. Mojo is live in New Jersey right now, so download the Mojo app in the Apple App Store today and start turning your playmakers into money makers. Must be 21 years or older to use Mojo and located in the great state of New Jersey to make trades. If you have a gambling problem, help is available at 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit mojo.com for more info. Any other running back that we didn't give a shout out to that you want to give a shout out to before we move on, before we wish people happy holidays?
I think I'll leave with this. There is a lot of time to discuss this group. I know some of the comments are going to be this guy, this guy, this guy. This is the top five. There are a lot of good running backs in this class. We're going to get through all of them on this show, whether it is a Sean Tucker, Zach Evans, Tyjae Spears, Kendre Miller, Dwayne McBride, Kenny McIntosh, Deuce Vaughn, all the Senior Bowl running backs, which a friendly reminder, if I could pull that up real quick. The Senior Bowl running backs are the one intriguing one that I know you brought up earlier when we were talking off air, Trevor, is Chase Brown at Illinois.
Chase Brown is 6 for me.
Okay.
I have Chase Brown at 6.
Why don't you close out talking a little bit about Chase Brown?
Chase Brown, Illinois running back, led the country in rushing yards this year. 80.9 rushing grade, 80.5 overall receiving grade, 1,600 rushing yards, 935 after contact, 10 touchdowns, 77 missed tackles forced. It's a .23 average, 48 explosive plays, 27 receptions for 240 receiving yards, and he had 1 drop. This dude is a lower the shoulder, and at any point there is contact, he is running through it, baby. He's light on his feet for a guy who plays with a lot of power style, but he just doesn't have, I don't think, that like NFL final gear of juice to really be a big time athletic threat, but he is somebody who you hand him the rock. He feels not quite Tyler Algier and Dameon Pierce-ish, but that mold. You hand this guy, you put the ball in this guy's gut, he's going to fight for everything, man. That's how he got the yardage that he did. His vision was much improved this year, very light on his feet. He was very decisive, and I thought he played very, very well. So I'm a sucker for those guys who give so much mentality and fight. I think I ended up having Tyler Algier as RB3 in last year's class because I was like, you just can't bring this guy down. Sure, okay, he might not beat you in a full race, but when you catch up to him, what are you going to do? Because then it turns into a street fight, and he ain't going to lose it.
Looks
So
great this weekend.
Chase Brown does feel a little bit like that. You're getting in a boxing match with him anytime you're trying to bring him down. So I had him at RB6 for that. I love that fight and that mentality. That also weighs pretty heavily in my grading scale. And Chase Brown is one of the best in the country at that.
Man, it's good to hear. I'm excited to get a look at him down in Mobile, along with a lot of those guys like Gray, Rodriguez. Go on.
I just wanted to talk about Sean Tucker because I think we both had Sean Tucker in our top fives going into the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have Tucker 8. I have him as RB8. Definitely not as good of a year for Sean Tucker this year as it was last year, I don't think. And a big reason why is the area of running back play that I value the most, the vision. I just felt like he was a little impatient. The spatial awareness just wasn't what it was last year. And just ultimately when to make the cut, when to be decisive, where to plant your foot, which direction you want to go, how to find the open space. I just didn't think Sean Tucker saw the field as well this year as he did last year, which worries me because that is the top trait that I look for with running backs. He is still a well-built back, and he's still got really great straight line athleticism. But I think the lateral agility is a little stiff in that regard. I think that goes into maybe a little bit of hesitancy when it comes to him putting his foot in the ground and making a cut. Really nice straight line athleticism. We've seen the plays before where he can put his foot in the ground. If he's going north to south, man, he can get up to top speed in a hurry. So he's got good size. He's got good long speed, but there are little areas and details of the game, starting with vision and then next with agility, that I just wasn't super sold on. So I had him lower than I thought I was going to, but I got him at RB8.
I thought so too. I thought he was somebody, he just, at the end of the day, he wasn't in the same consideration as RB5 as a lot of those other guys. And that to me in itself was disappointing. I think he's fine. I didn't find him overly explosive. I didn't find him, like you said, Trevor, always seeing things very clearly, a little hesitant at times, let things develop a little too long. And I think there was a couple of times where him doing that, what I loved about him in 2021, it felt like he never tried to do too much and he had good feel. And I felt like he lost a little bit of himself that way in 2022. So it just not the same exact player that we saw. And that doesn't mean he's not a good one. Doesn't mean he's not somebody that can get drafted around, 3 to 4 and eventually be a starter somewhere. But I just didn't think he looked the same this entire year compared to how impressive he was in 2021.
Yeah, I got to go back and watch him because I really liked him. I really liked him going in this summer. So I need to get some more games on him. But 3 games in from this season, I was like, man. And they were 2 of his highest graded games. And then I typically like to watch the game that we have graded the highest and then a low one. And then normally like some other game of competition that might stand out or whatever it is. So I'm going to keep watching him. You guys should too. Let us know what you thought about our running back takes here on this episode. Let us know who you think that we're sleeping on, who needs to be a little bit higher on this list, who you think we might be overrating, who needs to be a little bit lower. And you can let us know everywhere on Twitter at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers. You can hit us up on Instagram as well. And if you are watching this on YouTube, of course, the YouTube comments are a fantastic way to get in on the show and communicate with us. We read all the comments from YouTube as well. So we salute everybody who is watching on YouTube. The YouTube Hive and the fan club for NFLSE seems to be growing as we get closer to draft season. So we really appreciate you guys a ton. But Connor, anything else before we get out of here?
Happy holidays to everyone.
Indeed.
Of course.
Yes.
Really appreciate the community that supports this show. Would love to know everyone's takes. A running back that you might be really high on that you don't see a lot of people talking about, or even somebody that didn't make the top 5 of ours that you really, really like, that you think will be a riser, or maybe somebody you're skeptical of in the top 5. I would love to hear it because this is really one of those shows, Trevor, that brings together the draft community, the NFL community, the fantasy community, because this is, knowing this group has such a massive effect on fantasy next year because these guys are going to be big time players in that world right away. So this was a fun one, and I'm excited to see how it changes after the combine, if it does at all.
Yep. So we'd love to hear your early takes. We'd love to hear what you think is going to happen in the rest of draft season, whether you're a fantasy football person, an NFL draft person, an NFL overall person that's just looking for a good back for their team to pick up wherever they do in the draft. We would love to hear your thoughts. We love you guys. However, you are celebrating the holidays this weekend. We wish you nothing but joy, enjoyment, smiles, hopefully some good food as well. I know a lot of winter storms are rolling through their country, so stay safe, stay warm. We will see you guys next week. For Trevor Sikkema, for Connor Rogers, thank you guys so much for watching the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. See you guys next week.